All right, we are back, Sayless Projects podcast, and I am here today with my good friend Craig, who just got back from the Boston Marathon. Craig, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. You got to give me a good story, man, for the podcast. Any cool stories from the Boston Marathon? Obviously, besides from just finishing.
Yeah, I think honestly, the last 5 miles are probably the most noteworthy. Uh, just those downhills really kill your legs. So the best way I would describe it is you feel like the tank is slowly running out of gas. Like you're a car, and you still have like the mental capacity to keep pushing, but then you're like, I just have to manage I'm on a small tank of gas, and I have to somehow manage like my effort to get to the finish line. So that was like definitely the biggest challenge. And you would think going in that the last 6 miles, oh, it's like downhill, the hard part's behind you, but it really does kind of zap your legs, and like you feel like you're about to cramp up. So when people are walking around you and like throwing up and all this stuff, you kind of see that you're like, I just need to get to the finish line.
Oh my gosh, man, it's like a war zone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's such a thing, marathoning when you're in that last mile and you see people just dropping and you're all you can think is like, one, not me, hopefully not me. And secondly, like you're so close, like just walk, crawl, do whatever it takes. But
Yeah,
to your to your point, I mean, if you run out of gas, you run out of gas. Like, what can you do?
yeah, it's definitely that's where I think being in tune with your body and like knowing like in training, nutrition or taking in energy gels and water and whatnot, it's you can practice it, but it's once it's you're ready to go, it's you want to keep fighting, but then sometimes you just kind of slowly run out of fuel. So it's definitely a balancing act for sure.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into a little bit of your story. Let us know where you're from, how you got into running, and kind of like how you got to this point.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm from northern New Jersey, a small town called Stockholm. I believe it might be an unincorporated town. It's a part of a larger town. Lots of wilderness and kind of rural areas around. So living in Dallas the last year and a half, it's a bit of a change, but I've kind of slowly transitioned, kind of moving up from where I grew up to a smaller city to Charlotte, North Carolina, a little bit bigger of a city, and then Dallas is a little bit bigger but still mid-sized. In terms of running, though, I think the very first time that I went on a specific run that I can remember, so a run that was not a part of like basketball or like football practice or what have you, was maybe like fifth or sixth grade, mostly because my brother was getting involved in it when he was in middle school. So he was an eighth grader at that time, or maybe a seventh grader. And we went out for a run. It was in the middle of the summer. I think we made it about 1 mile. I was like, man, this is awful. Like I am definitely not going to run like in in middle school or whatever. So that was like probably my earliest memory of ever doing a dedicated specific run. But most of my sort of desire to start running stemmed from my brother, who he got into cross country. And when I first heard of cross country, I was like, oh, like you run across the country? Like what is what kind of sport is that? So I slowly learned from him, and then kind of took it from there.
Yeah, because I always thought the same thing. Like, I think that's why I never really had an interest in it. Like, because cross country, what's the distance?
So it can range, but like when you're younger, like when you first get into it, um, if you're maybe like middle school or elementary school, it might be about a mile and a half. And then once you get into high school, it goes up to a 5K. And then as you progress, if you run after high school and college, it'll be like 8K to 10K. So like you're topping off at like about 6 miles.
I wonder why they call it cross country. It's kind of weird branding, but
Yeah.
um, who knows? But awesome. So you started pretty young, and then I know a bit about your stories, but you also ran in college, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I ran Division 1 at Wake Forest University, which is in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Awesome. That's awesome. When you were running there, on this subject, we're talking about mental health, we're talking about suicide prevention. Did you experience, whether it was you or maybe with fellow athletes, was mental health a subject that was talked about in the running space? Did you see people dealing with mental health, whether that was bad or good? What was your take on it during that time?
Yeah, so I don't recall an instance necessarily where it was like heavily talked about, but I think as as I got later in the program, so maybe like the second 2 years, sophomore or I guess junior and senior year, I do recall there being like a new resource in a sports psychologist. So I think that was kind of dedicated to help you, obviously with like athletic performance, but also if you have other things maybe going on in your personal life, um, they could probably help you navigate. Like, okay, obviously you're balancing like coursework in your schooling, personal life. You know, if you have, you know, maybe at that point, um, you may have had encountered a couple of deaths in the family or friends or what have you. So really I never personally experienced it, but probably dedicated to help you navigate those challenges and also like keep up with your athletic performance. So
Yeah,
I'm like a kind of a balance of both of those.
I like the angle you're talking about because it just made me think of this thought because I think, myself and there's others who we have a certain story, and a lot of times those stories even can, maybe even I would say, use the word like they're glorified because they're like these stories of overcoming and tragedy and all these different things. But it sounds like for you during those years, not that you didn't have any challenges, but the mental health thing may not have been such a thing to you. But I would say on that note, what do you think helped you to like maybe not have mental health issues? Like, what are some of the things growing up, whether it was from your parents instilled into you or your brother or your family? Like, what do you think are some traits that we can learn from that might have set you up for success through those years?
Yeah, I think some of the things that stand out to me, like just from my personal, um, like how I've approached it, is I tend to like take smaller steps at a time. So you know, if you have a lot going on, it's really easy to kind of jump to the end and say, you know, how am I supposed to accomplish getting B's and A's in class? How am I supposed to like perform at this level that the coach is expecting me? How am I supposed to like eat all the right things and like go to bed on time and like navigate all these things at once? So like the way that I've always approached it is kind of taking just one step at a time. It does sound kind of cliche, but it's um, you know, you kind of focus on what you can control in that exact moment. So let's say, you know, you need to study for the night, you know, don't necessarily worry like 4 days from now what you need to do. Like you know, tackle that as it comes, which I think can be applied to so many different things, and especially like our upcoming relay. It's you know, it's easy to sit here and think, oh, how are we supposed to accomplish all, you know, roughly 300 miles of this run? But it's um the way I've like to approach it is compartmentalize it and break it down into like smaller chunks. So it's um I would like to think my parents and my brother, like we never really or they never really put too much pressure on me in that sense. Um the focus was always on like, you know, being a good person, doing what you enjoy, like remembering what sort of like why you're doing it and not necessarily like that the outcome is the most important thing, which I think then translates back into making it easier to compartmentalize it. So it's kind of like a full circle is kind of the way I like to think about it. Whereas if you put a lot of pressure on yourself and then you're only focusing on the outcome, it can start to become really overwhelming. So, and I think that can be applied to like if you have a particularly hard day at work or whatever the case may be. It's um, you know, putting one foot in front of the other, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that. I think, like you said, man, there's nothing like the power of being present. There's this book, Eckhart Tolle wrote The Power of Now. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or read it, but he talks about how a mindset on the past often leads to depression or depressive thoughts, and a mindset on the future can lead to anxious thoughts, which
Yeah.
I think a lot of people live in that zone because it's so easy to, because we live in this day where it's all about the vision, the future, where you're going, what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. And to your point, you said it so well. It's like, okay, well, if you want to run 300 miles, how about get present and start training your body to handle five, handle 10, because it all stacks up,
Yeah, I think a lot of us are much stronger than we think we are. You know, like I think it's Steve Magnus is he's like the big kind of runner. Um, I think New York Times bestseller. Like he has a couple of books, but he talks about like, oh, if you're struggling to like motivate yourself to go run 5 miles that you had on your training plan, he's like, just go out for 5 minutes, and then oftentimes like maybe if you truly are like struggling that day, then cut it at 5 minutes, it'll be okay. Like you kind of went through the motions, and sometimes that's a part of like the consistency that helps in the long run. It's not even necessarily the fact that you did or didn't do the 5 miles. It's like you went through the process and like pushed through that discomfort to get 5 minutes in. And then the trick is that after that 5 minutes, you might feel good, and then you'll go 10 minutes, maybe even 20 minutes. And if you feel bad, then you can kind of just go back and recover, or do whatever you have to do. So it's um it's just a good way to kind of take a small step, and that can kind of lead to consistency, which plays a lot into like running and this sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the relay, why did you say less? Like what was your reason for saying yes when I asked you?
Yeah, so maybe like a handful of years ago, I've always thought it was really interesting after graduating college and kind of being done with the Division 1 running sort of thing. I was like, it would be really cool to do like a point to point sort of running challenge. So that's definitely one component. It's like, okay, it's a great opportunity to do that. I think it's also pretty unique to kind of be on a team of people who you were sort of meshed together, not necessarily like choosing yourself. So it's a unique sort of challenge that, the sole focus is to overcome like a pretty big challenge and like do something that's bigger than just yourself, which I think oftentimes running can be like a more like a selfish sort of sport where you are often focusing on yourself and not focusing on like maybe your teammates. So the blend of like the unknown, I think, is like a huge draw too. It's like, okay, I'm not sure who everyone on this team is, like maybe from the start when you released like who everyone was. So the idea of like we'll go from a collection of people who were not familiar with one another, we're overcoming that sort of obstacle where we'll have to like bond and like collaborate and work as a team. And then the unknown of each mile that we run, it's kind of uncharted territory for all of us. And then kind of all that coupled with the fact that it's just something that's bigger than and just whatever my like personal talents are. So that's
Yeah,
definitely a huge part of it.
that's awesome, man. What are some texts? I know we talked about you being present and compartmentalizing things. Maybe just to dive a little deeper on that as we get ready to close here soon. But are there any things that beyond those that you practice now on this side of being an adult and having a career and being in a relationship and being someone who runs, and you are involved in several different arenas. Um, what do you do weekly, monthly to kind of help stay clear-headed or help you stay focused?
That is a good question because I don't know if I'm necessarily doing any one thing in particular. I think it's well, I will say like running and being active and like doing something that's challenging helps to kind of dampen the like maybe work stresses or like other stresses that are going on. It gives you just like more of a clear head. So then the way that that can translate to like the work that I do. So I'm a sales business analyst. So I'm thinking logically a lot of times. I'm looking at spreadsheets. I'm working with numbers pretty much all day, every day. Um, and there's a cyclical nature of like the work that I do too, just like a lot of other careers where you might have like a really busy time of the year, you might have a slower time of the year. So like again, to compartmentalize it, it's like movement and being active kind of gives me clarity, and oftentimes stepping away from my desk can kind of give me a better approach, or like kind of give me clear ideas. Um, but just not jumping to the end. Like if our busiest time of the year is maybe fourth quarter, um, kind of putting that aside just for the time being and saying, okay, what can I work on this week at work? Like, what can I set up? How can I break this down into smaller pieces? Maybe it's building a formula in a spreadsheet that when things do get busier in the fourth quarter, I'm not having to worry about like the structure of the work I'm doing. I can think more strategically or move more quickly through it.
Mm.
So it's just like small things like that, which can be overlooked when times are slow and you're like, oh, it's not a big deal at the moment. Um, just kind of setting yourself up for like future success. And the same thing goes with running too, like week to week. I'm definitely not the best with stretching and strength work and whatnot, but just small things like hydrating and getting to bed at a reasonable hour, like it sets you up for like the long term approach. So
Yeah.
it just makes it easier to not stress about accomplishing a time when you're just able to kind of break down the things that you have a little bit more control over, like in the short run.
Yeah, yeah, that's good, man. I think what you're talking about is, just the cliches of like being organized, having structure. Like I think a lot of times we're looking for these like eloquent, strategies. And like I think the what's his name? It's Steve Magnus, right? Because I actually bought one of his books because I think I saw you post something he said and it really like got me. But I think he talks about that a lot. Like it's really just the basics consistently done over time, and doing the cliches is really where it's at.
Yeah, definitely. I do often say just like I don't really like cliches too much, but it is kind of true. I think I forget where I saw that too. Someone else was using cliches and they kind of made the same point. It's I hate to use cliches, but it is true. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like some of the best coaches in the world will say that, and high achieving athletes, they just put in like um, they just kind of put in the boring stuff. It's the stuff that no one really wants to talk too much about, and it does work, and it helps like consistently, or it helps you remain consistent but produce consistent performances, so that you're not
Mm,
maybe imploding on one particular event or another. So it's boring, but it does get the job done. It's kind of like the workhorse behind the whole
yeah.
of it.
Absolutely. What are you looking forward to on the road? I know I'm sure you've talked about it with Mimi and others, and what are you like excited about to experience on the road to Austin?
Yeah, I think there's a few things in particular I'm excited for. So one is the sort of unique balance between like solitude and working with your team. So obviously we'll be like flip flopping between, we'll have someone on the bike, we'll have someone running. So you kind of have that chance to sort of be vulnerable, maybe like alone. You have that moment of solitude, but then you also have the balance when you're back in the van and you're kind of all on top of each other and like maybe smell bad and maybe tensions get high if it's in the middle of the night and people are cranky or sleepy or whatever. So I'm excited to kind of experience that balance between the two. Um, just because I don't know how often you can go from being very like alone and kind of in solitude back to being in like a really cramped situation.
Yeah.
That kind of tug of war will be interesting.
Oh, my friend, you will find out soon. I thought about it this year. I was like, I've created like the real world, like the MTV reality show, like for runners. Just putting all you guys in a van with strangers and making y'all go do something crazy.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, the other thing is um, just the overcoming like challenges. So there's like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of unknowns. So it's who even knows what will happen. But yeah, mm, I think it's easy when you're with a group of people, maybe for like an hour at a time, that you're not in a situation where like you're ever really vulnerable or like at your wits end. But I think when you're together and you're tired just from running, and then you're tired from lack of sleep, and you're tired from like pushing yourself and like the high energy and everything, like the ebbs and the flows of the experience. I'm kind of expecting that to sort of be the case, but who knows? I might be wrong there too. But just the ability to kind of work as a team, I'm excited for as well. So it's kind of 12 of us coming together to overcome like a challenge is and problem solve if we need to. It's like that sort of stuff I'm excited for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, I appreciate you carving out time. Before I acknowledge you, this is a selfish question. What's next now that you've accomplished Boston?
Yeah, so right now I'm in the stages of just trying to map out like how I want my training to go and maybe setting up a couple of races for next year. I don't often race a lot, so I'm trying to strategize as to do I want to race in the fall, do I want to race in the winter or next spring. So right now I am looking for a race. It could be Houston or maybe the Indianapolis Marathon. Not 100% sure yet, but currently kind of trying to map things out as we speak.
That's awesome. I could see you being a problem in Houston. It seemed like I was there cheering, and it seemed like everybody destroyed Houston.
Yeah,
It was so cold though, cheering. Like I literally couldn't take it.
yeah,
Like I was frozen.
yeah. My hands were freezing out there too.
But man, so I just want to acknowledge you, man, and say thank you for saying less. I'm grateful to be a friend of yours, and it's been awesome to get to know you more as part of the running community here in Dallas. And just wanted to let you know, man, you're inspiring in what you do. It's cool to see you out there. I know you said you don't race a lot, but the times that I've seen you race, it's always motivated me to keep going and pushing and setting higher goals. And so, just want to say thank you, man, for being someone who's like a staple in the community here in Dallas and part of our run crew and all of those things. And so I look forward to seeing what you do. I'll say it public and I'll say it to you here because I haven't said it to you privately. I'm looking forward to you with the team. I feel like you're a bit on the more quiet side, at least from
Yeah,
my
yeah,
perspective. But I feel like you have like leadership, and there's some things that are going to come out of you that are going to help the team. So I'm looking forward to seeing it all play out.
yeah. Definitely excited. I appreciate you having me on, and thank you for building such a strong community in Dallas.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you on the road to Austin.
Thank you.